Hi, and welcome to From First Kiss to Wedded Bliss. I'm your host, Marcy Sullivan. Joining me today, I have Alyssa and Brian Lowe. They have been married 21 years and currently are pastoring the church at in Warsaw, Indiana, called Home Church. They've been in ministry 25 years together, including youth ministry, traveling speakers, conference hosts, and they're, as I said, currently serving as local pastors. They also have three kiddos. Hope I get their names right. Braden, Nevaeh, and Kyra.
Yeah, you did great.
All right. Welcome, Alyssa and Brian. Thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
To start off with, I thought it'd be fun to hear how you guys met.
Sure. We met in church, actually, of all things.
Yeah.
I would say uh, she came Sunday morning, but we really got to meet each other that Sunday night at a roller skate rink.
Yeah, we went to a skating party and honestly, we just became best friends and
For a long time.
yeah, for a long time. And we're attracted to each other at different times, but mostly we were just best friends and we would go to college and email about other people who we were interested in. And then when he came home and I was already home, we said, "Oh, wait, there's more here." So that's kind of the short story.
Yes. Well, I always think friendship is an awesome place to start a relationship because then you've always got that to fall back on. When people just start with, oh, the chemistry is so strong, we just are so attracted to each other. And then that can fizzle over time. And if you don't have anything else there, then it's hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what compelled you guys to write a book about conflict?
What compelled us to write a book about conflict?
Yeah, for me, it was, we were in a season where there were so many couples having strife in their marriage. And, a lot of the things that they had issues with were simple,
Yeah.
and some of them were even the same, but it was just like they just needed some tweaks in there. And it was so frustrating that the enemy was able to get into these marriages over these simple things. And we got to looking, and there was resources out there for finances and relationship and emotional needs and money and raising kids. There's everything out there, but I didn't see a lot out there on how to fight. And by fight, I mean how to argue or have conversations. Fight is a bit of an aggressive word, and we kind of spin it at different angles. But we thought people just need to know how to have this conflict and go and walk through it and still love each other.
Yeah, I think that's a really big point because it was simply that. There's so many resources for so many other topics, but one thing you're going to do eventually at some point in your marriage is have a fight, have conflict, have that really hard conversation. And oftentimes we're trying to win in that moment and trying to let people know in those difficult moments, like there's a place that God can show up and you don't have to regret having a struggle or a strong conversation or a fight or an argument, that God can actually use that to bring a health and
Yeah.
wholeness to your marriage.
Right. Yes, I agree. Conflict, my husband loves this quote by Dr. Les Parrott. Conflict is the key to deeper intimacy. Have you ever
Yeah.
heard that one?
No,
I
I
haven't,
haven't. That's
no.
good.
I do
So
like it.
so the premise is when you have something that you're disagreeing about, it's an opportunity to learn something about your spouse that you didn't know before and to have that openness to understanding, which I think is a big part of really fighting well, is to be seeking understanding.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Tell us the title of your book.
How to fight in marriage. 12
Yes,
rounds to an undefeated marriage.
right. Very good. Yeah, 12, how was it? 12 steps?
Rounds.
12
12
rounds.
rounds.
Yes.
Boxing match.
There's the analogy to the boxing match. Yes. Um, why do you think that so many couples avoid conflict? Maybe there's some shame in fighting, or however you want to say it. What do you think? Why do they avoid it?
Why do they avoid conflict?
Mm.
I think probably because like what we discovered is there's all these resources for how to do all these other parts of marriage. And when you have conflict, it often feels like failure. So if you're avoiding it, it's because you want to have a successful marriage, you desire to have a successful marriage, and you'll avoid difficult conversations so it doesn't feel like your marriage is failing. And oftentimes what that does is it prolongs how long we're living with a hurt in our marriage
Mm.
or with a disappointment in our marriage.
And honestly, conflict is just not fun. As a culture, we try to avoid it. We try to be pleasant to each other and just avoid it to the best of our abilities, so we don't have to go through the hard things that make us better.
Yeah.
Right. That's a good point, Alyssa, that make us better. We're often talking, my husband and I, recently about struggles and the purpose of them. It really is, you grow stronger through the struggle.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
God can refine us through that.
Diamonds are made from pressure. We've heard that so many times, and that's the same thing in conflict resolution.
Mm-hmm. I think the majority of us are non-confrontational. And maybe a lot of times some things don't need to be said, right? But how do you differentiate when something needs to be talked about versus, oh, that's okay. I can just let that go.
How do you differentiate between the two?
Mm,
I think what we did is it's when you can't differentiate anymore. Like our address with the book is when something is now at a place where you can't ignore it anymore. So I'm not exactly sure how you would measure those two things. We kind of tend to be very vocal individuals. We're both very competitive. So conflict for us was, I mean, it was common.
mm,
And to go from a place of feeling wounded through conflict through to feeling more united and afterwards was something that we really felt like was important, which is what we tried to focus on when we wrote our book.
I hear you. So being competitive,
Yeah,
you got a winner, you got a loser. But in marriage, that doesn't work too well, does it?
no, it doesn't.
Yeah,
No.
you've got to be on the same team. And
Yeah.
so you've got to both win. Yeah.
There was a season where for him, he was very passionate, and actually it caught on even with me, where he said, is it better for me to be right, or is it better for me to be godly?
Yeah.
Do I want to be right, or do I want to be godly? And so he would say that and repeat it. And I'm like, ooh, I don't know if that was for him or if it was for me, because I love to give my opinion. I don't mind. We could have a disagreement right now, and then I'd be like, let's go get coffee, right? So but then I started realizing, oh, my opinion isn't always needed. I don't always need to throw that in, or I don't always have to win. I don't always have to be right. I prefer to be godly. I want to be Christ-like.
I like that. I had heard you can be right or you can be happy, but I like that even better.
Yeah.
You can be right or you can be godly. Right. Because the people that are always trying to make their point and win the argument are really losing in the relationship, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you may win the argument, but to win the argument, your spouse has to lose. And according to the word, you're one flesh.
Right.
So anytime that one of us is winning and the other one, it's at the cost of the other one losing, you're not really winning. You're not making forward progress in your marriage. You may have won the moment, but your marriage is still wounded.
Right. As they say, won the battle, but not the war. So yeah, we want to be united together, finding solutions that we both can feel good about. Is that part of your advice?
Yeah, absolutely. It's finding solutions you both feel good about. Some of it is even the way you fight. I don't know how long you've been married, but I know one of the things I was bad at is I'd start to plan out the argument before it ever got started. Like I'm in the car on the way home, and I'm like, okay, I know this is going to be a conflict. I know this is going to be a fight. It's going to be a pain point.
She's going to say this, and I'm going to say
Yeah,
this.
when she says this, I'm going to respond this way. And we call that in our book shadow boxing, is when you have a preconceived idea how things are going to go, and learning to let that go, so that when she says something, I hear it for what she's meaning and not the implication I added to it.
And what he found is he was walking in, or a person doing that could walk into an argument already mad about something that did not happen yet. And it's unfair to him because that's not his demeanor. If this is just an example, if it was him, that's not his normal demeanor. And it's not fair to me because maybe I would have said those things, but I need room to maybe change and grow beyond the things I used to do.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't know if I've ever fought through a fight beforehand, but oftentimes when the other person is speaking, we're formulating our arguments instead of really listening.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And that's another problem.
And
What do you, I'm sorry, did you have something you wanted to say?
well, and I think that's what I was doing even prior to the fight, not just in the middle of it. I had already shut down the ability to listen by predetermining what her answers were, what my response was, how I was going to go through this conversation. And it was a very one-sided, like, I've got to win this. And the only way to do that is to shut her down.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I wonder if you had any debate experience in high school or college that made you a good
Oh, shut up.
I had a lot of debate experience with my friend.
So, what are some common mistakes that couples tend to make during conflict that maybe escalates things rather than brings healing or promotes healing?
There are so many things. I would say for me, the biggest is your responses, how you respond, because a lot of times we respond out of our emotions. Most of the time we respond out of our emotions, and emotions are temporary. And emotions are what's going on in that moment. And so a lot of times it's responding out of anger. You're yelling, you're putting the other person down, name calling, and all of that is a response of how you feel,
Mhm.
which again, I say is a temporary thing.
Yeah, we have a section in our book we call where we throw punches. And it's when you're in an argument and you make a point that really the only purpose of it is to wound the person. It's because you're frustrated either at the situation, which oftentimes is what you're frustrated at. It's not your spouse.
Mhm.
It's the situation that's going on in or around your home that involves both of you. You felt ill prepared for it. It wasn't what you were expecting to have to tackle in your marriage. But now you're here and we make our spouse the target instead of learning how to tackle it together. And throwing punches is when, man, I don't like what they're saying, even if it is right. And I make the statement, well, you're just like your mother, knowing, well, that's going to cause a wound in her, or you're just like whatever that statement is.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. So personal attacks, wounding. So those are some common mistakes you've seen and experienced yourself in relationship. What do you think a couple can do to pause a fight when we talked about emotions are running high and without sweeping the issues under the rug?
How to pause a fight without sweeping the issues under the rug.
Mm.
It's learning you came from different cultures.
Mm.
I grew up in a very loud culture that was extremely confrontational, and a sign of commitment was staying in the argument. Where you grew up in,
You leave, before I say something that I don't mean, or just try to get away from the situation. So I was raised mostly by my grandma, and she would pack a bag, leave, and I wouldn't see her the next day. She went and got a hotel room or something.
Oh.
It was learning how to.
yeah, understand each other's cultures and backgrounds. Because one of the first arguments we ever got in when she disconnected, and all of the disconnection was walking out of the house, going and sitting in the car, because I was at a place of passion and volume of trying to communicate, and I didn't feel like she was hearing me. So, hey, if you're not going to hear me,
I'll speak louder.
I'm going to get louder.
And that would shut me down because I've seen a lot of physical fighting in relationships that I looked at, that I was around.
Yeah. So and here I am shutting her down, not realizing it because I'm getting louder because I want her to hear my point. And then when she left, I felt abandoned. I didn't know what to do or how to handle that moment. I'm like, is she quitting on me? Is she quitting on our marriage? What is going on here? Like, I hadn't seen that yet.
Right.
So to kind of bring it back to kind of your question, if I can remember it right, I think part of it is when we did that, we worked through it. And then a lot of times when they do something that hurts you later, when it's not like a heated time, you could say, when that happened, that really hurt me.
Yeah.
And you can talk about it when emotions aren't high. And then it's like, oh man, I need to adjust that. I can't just walk out. He interpreted it as this. And so next time, I need to do better. And I would say, like, how do you shut down? If you're in the heat of an argument, I think somebody just has to step up and realize, oh wow, this is not healthy. This is not good. This is not godly.
And you have to make the promise to return to it, though. That's like, for me, that was the thing, is if I'm getting passionate, which is easy for me to do, and she says, hey, I'm starting to shut down. You're getting loud, I'm shutting down. I don't want to do this. I can release the conversation if I know she's willing to come back to it.
Yeah.
And that for me was really big. So if you're in a place of really struggle and fighting and you don't feel like you're making any progress, have the ability to have a pause and that place of going, okay, you know what, you're right. And in that pause, your brain doesn't stop thinking, your heart doesn't stop dealing with the issues. It gives you better language, though, for when you come back together.
Yes, I agree. And I think that's so important. Dr. John Gottman talks about it as somebody being flooded when their emotions get so high that it's hard to even think straight when you're upset. So the important part, I think, of what you're saying is the person who says, hey, I need a pause, this is getting to be too much for me. That person also needs to initiate but we'll talk about it, in an hour, or some sort of time, so we know I'm still committed and I'm still coming back to you in this. I know another big thing that people talk about, especially Christians, because don't let the sun go down on your wrath, right? And I've always heard that, but I actually heard something contradictory to it, and I wonder where you guys stand on it. Does it really mean that you have to settle things before you fall asleep, or does it really just mean that you need to reassure each other, I still love you, it's getting late, let's talk about this tomorrow, we're still on the same team? What do you think? Does it have to be settled before you sleep, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, especially within the context of a Christian marriage, because we will wear each other out trying to argue late into the night. And it's like, well, the sun's already down. So what are you going to do at this point? Is it, we don't want the sun to come up before we've fixed this? Yeah. And oftentimes I think it's a condition of your heart. Can I give grace and, like you said, reaffirm our relationship, our love, despite the struggle, and us revisit this tomorrow, and us still go to get to bed together with peace. Not where, we've got our backs to one another and we're steaming, but just that.
Or the couch.
Yeah.
They're sleeping on the couch thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's more of a reflection of that than it is just, because so many arguments, someone's like, yeah, we can't let the sun go down on our wrath. We fought till 2 a.m. in the morning. I'm like, well, the sun was already down. What are you talking about?
Yes, I agree with you on that completely. It's, I think, don't let the sun go down in your wrath, to me, is really not, you have to have everything figured out before you go to sleep tonight. You have to have it settled, no, but you just have to be, like you said, at peace with each other and affirm the commitment and be able to go to bed in a better frame of mind, I guess. Yeah. So what does reconciliation actually look like after a hard fight? Is it just saying you're sorry? Is there more to it than that?
We teach, our household, each other, our kids, our church, that when you do say sorry, it's very important to say, I forgive you. That was something that's actually in our book as well, that, sometimes your words can line up and speak into existence, and your feelings, your emotions can follow that. And maybe it's not there right away. But there were some times where I would say, I feel like this is more of a woman thing than a man, but I would have to say, I forgive you when I'm still hurt and I'm still angry and I'm still frustrated. And so, yeah, I would still say, I forgive you.
Yeah, it was forgiveness that started first from a place of faith, then a place of emotional support. And I think not just that, but there's the saying, there's no sex like makeup sex.
Right.
And after a really strong conflict, when you've gotten verbiage that is supportive for one another, I think it's really important to also have the actions that follow, because it eliminates the enemy from playing in the background of your mind and replaying those moments. And it ends things in a place where with your spouse, you share something with your spouse that you don't share with anyone else. You can have fights with other people, you can have reconciliation with other people, but there's a place of intimacy. The Bible calls it knowing, that you can have with your spouse that's completely different than anybody else. So I think it's even good to bring that in following conflict.
Yeah.
That's good. Now, I think some people feel that they need to know, especially if it's an issue that's happened over and over again, a hurt that's happened time and time again, that, okay, what are you going to do to make it different? How are we going to change it next time? Has that ever been something you've come across?
Yeah, we for sure have had things that we've, hurt each other regularly. And I think that's where our Christianity steps in, where we give grace, not to the point where one partner is being abused, where it becomes an abusive situation and walked over or something. I'm not talking about those types of situations, but a lot of times when we meet with people and they're in strife, it's over a course of years where they got there, and they're not going to get over it overnight, and they're not going to fix it overnight. And so you've got to give each other grace for change.
That, and there needs to be the understanding that repetitive behavior is also isolated. So the conversation of, okay, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do this again, also needs to bring in the other spouse to the place of saying, hey, if you see this happening, if you do this, I give you permission to bring it to my attention. Now, you may even have to help them with the language of bringing it to your attention, so it doesn't come across as nagging or anger and frustrated, and you spur a fight later. It may be like, hey, I want to change this. I desire to do that. I need help, because isolated behavior will become repeated behavior. So when I'm doing this, will you say this? And when I give her the language, man, I can't be upset when she's using the language I've given her to help me stay on course in the place that we found agreement on.
Yes. Okay. So I hear somewhat of a plan of action to break cycles, these repeated behaviors that you're saying. So I give you permission to tell me, hey, red flag, I see you going in a direction that you don't want to go and I don't want to go. So yeah, something to try to interrupt that cycle that we get into. I like that. What hope would you offer to a couple who feels emotionally distant or cold because, like we were talking about earlier, of years of unhealthy conflict? What kind of hope could you offer a couple like that?
We will always give what we desire to receive from our spouse. And me and my wife, it's amazing. We did a test early in our marriage, and we found out that my number one emotional need is her bottom. And her number one emotional need was my bottom. So we literally were starving each other emotionally of what the other person desired. I think it's, at some point in your marriage, you have to say, okay, if you're emotionally starving, is there something you're not receiving from me that you need? And my job is to learn what that is. That's one of the ways God has called me to serve and even lead, is by learning what your needs are.
Living with your wife in an understanding way, I think, involves understanding, like you said, the emotional needs. That's part of it, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's great. So what tools do you use to determine? I know there's love languages. I really like his needs, her needs, which has a similar bent, but it's more male, female versus, everyone shares these different things. What do you use to determine emotional needs?
We do, it's called the emotional needs test by Intimate Life Encounters.
I thought you were going to be the one that Lee and Diana told us.
Oh, that's a great one as well.
Yeah, we have several that we use, but yes, we do use intimate life ministries, emotional needs.
Okay, I hadn't heard of Intimate Life Ministries before.
Dr. David Ferguson is who leads that ministry, and they have a beautiful test. And I think what we've enjoyed about it is the language they put to the needs. Like, hey, this is what that need looks like. But us, that was a real big thing of just
Because, oh, I'm so
no,
sorry.
no, that's all right.
Because needs look different to every person. And so, for example, my top need was respect. And on that particular test. And for some people, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, like they have to have that, that looks certain ways. But I realized, we all have cell phones. He would just pick it up and use it. And I would get so frustrated. And it wasn't like I had something to hide, but then
Right.
I was like, I'm acting like I have something to hide. And I was almost mad at myself, right? And then I realized, oh, wow, I just need him to ask me because it's mine. I just want him to ask. I'm going to say yes every single time. I want to be asked. And so then I realized, oh, wow, I'm not crazy. That is something that's in me, but now I don't have to be bound to it. Right now that I know it and have flagged it, one, he can do things on purpose to help that, which he does. He asks me as much as he can, but I also don't have to respond in anger every time that need doesn't get met. And now that I understand, wow, that's your top need, but you don't need it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important to know how you want that expressed,
Yes.
because respect to a man versus respect to a woman is pretty different in a lot of ways. And what was your top need, Brian?
Physical touch.
Not surprising. That's true
Yeah.
of a lot of guys.
A lot of guys, I think, have that, and honestly, something in us kind of rails against it because it makes you feel soft or weak. But my top need was physical touch. Like if she is touching me, if she walked, like I remember one of the days that she ministered really big, like just filled my cup up, is I was just doing the dishes, and she came up from behind and gave me a hug. And physical touch in her world is not at all in her even top
It wasn't
five.
existent in my household coming up.
So she had to learn to live without it. So it's not a need in her life. Versus I grew up in a very physical household. You could be a stranger, walk into our house, and you get hugged by everybody in the house. So a hug shows me that you love me, you support me, you're for me, you're with me. And that was a really massive thing for us to figure out, because I know now when she comes up and gives me a hug randomly, that's not for anyone other than just me.
Yeah.
She doesn't need that. This is her just pouring into me.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, so that can diffuse a lot of conflict right there, just understanding each other's needs, right?
Yeah.
If a couple could apply just one principle from the book that you wrote this week, what would you recommend?
I haven't read it in a long time, so I was browsing through. But hopefully the thing that I think I would say, even if I went through the whole book again, is something that you actually put in there, because our book is written in as a conversation, like he says something and I say something, and that's the style of the book. So it's a really easy read. But one of the things that's in there is to remember, like with your spouse, a triangle, and that as long as both of us are achieving to get closer to God, we're going to grow closer together. If you think about a triangle where he's here, I'm there, and God's here, and you go closer together as you seek God more out. So that's the thing that I think, it's not anything that we've talked about here, but I do think that will be a natural effect of you getting closer to God.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I think that's the number one thing is sometimes we try to solve things just horizontally, but if we can both vertically be moving in the same direction towards Christ, then there's a natural draw to each other. And God knows you better than I know you. He created you, formed you, shaped you. And
he'll help us love each other better.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree wholeheartedly on that. That's one of our starting points when my husband and I do any marriage classes is you've really got to have that vertical relationship right. You and God first, then you have something to give horizontally to those around you, including your spouse. So a lot of times I think fights.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say a lot of times I think fights come from what you were talking about, emotional needs, unmet needs. Sometimes we expect our spouse to meet needs that they can't.
Yeah, only God can.
Only God can, yes. So that's a great place to start. Good advice there.
And I would also say for couples, a lot of times you hear marriage is 50-50. Or you hear, no, marriage is 100. Everybody has to give it all. And while in some instances, both of those things I agree with, I also think that there was something I came across later, and it was, wow, I'm not going to always have 100%. And so the communication of, oh, honey, I'm really struggling. I can give you like 30%. I mean, maybe it won't look exactly like that. And he's like, okay, I got this. I'll give the 70. And maybe the next month or 3 months later, he's like, oh man, I feel really heavy lately. I got like 20 in me. And I'm like, okay, I got to pull 80, And so it's the communication of where you're at and working together in life.
Yes, that's great advice too, because it is true. It's not a mathematical equation. Marriage is give and take, and it changes in the different seasons of life and all of that. So really good. I've got just a couple more for you before we end today. How has writing the book changed your personal approach to conflict in your marriage?
Man, it put better language to behaviors that we had. I think when we started to really internalize how do we want to communicate how we've operated, we found language for just things we were doing and places we got to. So it would almost be like if you were on a journey and you turned around and someone asked you, "Oh, how do I get to where you're at?" And you draw out the map. I think that's what writing the book did. It helped us draw out the map.
Do either of you ever hand the other one the book? Hey, you need to look at page 9, whichever.
No, but I do need to reread it. I haven't revisited in a while, and as I was preparing for today, I was like, "Oh wow, I need to go back through it again." Because honestly, the things in here are very simple. I mean, if you've done anything with marriage, you're going to be like, "Yep, heard it before, been there, done that." But sometimes we need reminded of the simple things,
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree again. That's something that we talk about, again, my husband and I, marriage maintenance. We often think, we just keep going and we don't do anything intentional to invest in the relationship. But just like a car needs new tires or some oil change and all of this, we'd never think of driving a car off the lot and never doing anything with it again. But so many people approach marriage that way. They get married and just assume everything's going to be happily ever after without doing the things that won their love in the first place.
And you said intentionality,
Yes.
being intentional. That's so important because maybe it's not even like going into it thinking, oh, we're married, everything's gonna be okay. But maybe it's like life. Okay. Like we have bills, we have kids, we're both sometimes, we have 3 kids that we're active and we have to divide and conquer sometimes. And so there is that mindset of just marriage is gonna be good. Or there's also the mindset of, wow, we have to fight for this time, or we have to fight for things here so we don't lose it.
Good. Those are great. I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to share with the audience how they might find your book or connect with you if they'd like to learn more.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to find the book is on just through Amazon. So if you were to search "How to Fight in Marriage," you'll find our book right there. It's black with pink and blue boxing gloves. Yeah, right there. And then if you'd love to connect with us, reach out to us through home church.
Pastor Brian at homechurch.ch or Alyssa at homechurch.ch.
Yeah, we'd love to be a part of anything God's doing in your guys' lives.
Excellent. I appreciate that. The last thing I want to close with is we talked about being intentional. What's something intentional that the two of you do to keep your relationship strong?
Ooh. I know for me, I do things, I get involved with his hobbies or enter in his world. I also enjoyed video games. So I don't know if I can use that example, but I would play video games with him and I would tell him this is like marriage counseling because we got to work on communication in some of these games that we're playing. He likes movies, and so I'd watch movies with him. I didn't do a lot of movies growing up, but I would watch movies with him. I don't remember them, and he can show me the same one 5 times. I like basketball, and he's hopped on board with basketball. He plays basketball with me and watches basketball with me.
A lot of WNBA games.
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
The world is just very, very important. It's very selfless and intentional.
Yes, I like that. So entering into each other's worlds, that's wonderful. Great place to stop. Thank you guys so much for being part of the podcast today. I've enjoyed getting to know you a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes. Until next time. Bye bye.
Bye bye.